Governor Gianforte joins us now from the great state of Montana. Governor, thank you so much for your time today. This was a strong statement. Have you heard back from Merrick Garland or anyone at the DOJ in response to your letter?
Well, Dana, thanks for having me on. And not yet, but it's really a simple matter. We saw and see the continued overreach of the federal government. And in Montana, we believe in our Constitution, and particularly the Second Amendment. It's very clear. It says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So that's why in 2021, I signed into law a piece of legislation that says if the federal government steps beyond the bounds of our U.S. Constitution and starts to infringe on our rights to keep and bear arms, law enforcement in Montana do not have to enforce those unconstitutional rules. It started with bump stocks, as you mentioned. Now we're seeing these stabilizer braces. They're intended to help our veterans or disabled handle large format pistols. And we're just not going to have it in Montana.
Yeah, and it would create a lot of felons out of a lot of people. And as you just noted, talking with Montana Governor Greg Gianforte, as you just noted, Governor, this was created to help disabled firearm owners. And a lot of them were veterans who were coming back from, the front lines. And now we have this pistol brace rule, which is setting the stage to criminalize a lot of them through a rule and no congressional oversight. I mean, that's a real problem when we're allowing these agencies to do this. I was a little shocked that you've been one of the only governors that's actually stood up and have pushed back specifically on this. Have you heard from any of your other fellow Republican governors? I would hope that you're setting a pattern here that they would follow.
Well, I'm getting encouragement from across the country. This is a real issue of federal overreach. Mm-hmm. It's not just in this area of firearms. It's also in the area of woke investment. We just took the step of pulling back all the pension fund proxy voting because we don't want this ESG wokeness diminishing the financial returns for state employees.
Yeah,
we pulled back voting on $26 billion of investments because we can't have them implementing their political agendas.
Yeah, and that's a huge move that you've made as well. And we've talked about ESG which is, it's like the part of the green woke agenda where they're bringing all of that in and punishing corporations and taxpayers through investments, all of this stuff. And that's, because there is, people have a fiduciary duty. You've noted this as well. Talk to us a little bit about that too, because I'm going to get into some of this other stuff, because I know that you, from what I've read, were pushing back on, the moratoriums with rent and leases, because ultimately it comes down to the federal government treating, coming up with these rules that they're treating as law, no accountability. And so it really, that's why you have to, governors like yourself are having to stand up for taxpayers in your states, because you have to be the barrier between what the federal government is doing, how they're, essentially, for the lack of a better way to put it, punishing taxpayers in different states with either, the CDC stuff or the ATF stuff or ESG. Talk to us a little bit about how your job has really ultimately become a lot more difficult in doing that, because it seems like the federal government is doing this under this administration more than ever.
Well, we're seeing these confiscation of property rights and furtherance of political agendas in every area. We mentioned ESG, and just so folks are aware, you say, well, that's just the investment houses. Well, if you have a 401k mm-hmm. and it's with Vanguard or with one of these other national houses, somebody's voting the shareholder proxies on your behalf. And they could, what has happened is these elites in New York and San Francisco have decided that financial performance is not the most important thing, but their political agenda is the most important thing. ESG stands for environmental and social governance, and they're voting your retirement funds in favor of climate change, in favor of the Paris Climate Accord, and in anti Second Amendment ways that have nothing to do. I mean, I think most people that have a retirement fund would put financial performance at the top so they can have a secure retirement. That's not what's happening today in these investment houses. So that's a problem. We're also seeing overreach in other areas, particularly with the Biden administration's 30 by 30 plan, which is essentially using things like waters of the U.S. And other rules, the EPA, to confiscate private property rights. And for my part, as the CEO of the state of Montana, we're going to create a sanctuary for freedom and the free market. And it's my job to make sure Montanans are protected.
I love that. A sanctuary for freedom and the free market. Well, you're doing just that, Governor, and I really appreciate you standing up for the Second Amendment in your state, pushing back against this ridiculous overreach, and for not just this, but for all these other issues where it's taking place. Montana Governor Greg Gianforte, thank you so much, sir, for your time. We'd love to have you back again.
Yeah, thank you, Dana.
Of course.